This is a gold angel showing St. Michael spearing a dragon, and this is from Henry VII. Henry VII is the founder, at least as a king, of the Tudor line of kings and queens of England. This coin is believed to have been struck between 1502 and 1504, and I don't usually try to get this kind of coin. I've never had an angel before, but this is decent condition. In fact, for the series, it's pretty good, because often the face is flat and without any way of actually seeing the details of a nose or the eyes. And here it's okay. Or even if you get that, then the dragon or the spear will be totally gone or struck flat. This is, I think it's fair. What do they call it? AU55? The grade doesn't mean much though. I mean, you'll see some of these in mint state, and I would say they're worse struck or worse engraved, because there's a lot of different versions of the dies that were striking angels even of the same king around the same time. And I'm not sure if we call it a mint mark, maybe you would, is the greyhound head there. They call that a greyhound head. And that denotes that this was struck in London. The back is the best part, actually. You got a nice 1502 Columbus era type boat with the H for Henry and the rose, because he ended the Wars of the Roses. Henry VII famously came over with an army from France, had a huge battle where Richard III was killed and unceremoniously disposed of, only to be recently rediscovered when they were excavating a car park somewhere in England. So the reason this particular coin was of interest to me, and that I bid on coins in this auction and wound up coming away with this one, I just wanted something that looked good, was because, as it says, New Forest Hoard. And what was interesting about the New Forest Hoard is that it was one of the only good things to come out of COVID. In 2020, a family was digging in their garden, and this was, I believe it's said to be in Hampshire and close to the New Forest, at the edge of the New Forest. And let me see what it says here in the catalog. They give a nice story about how this happened. I'll read the story to you. So get comfortable. This fascinating hoard was discovered in April 2020 in the garden of a family home located about a mile inland from the village of Milford-on-Sea, Hampshire, in the southern reaches of the New Forest. It comprises 70 English coins, 69 gold and 1 silver. The earliest coin was struck in the 1420s in the reign of Henry VI, and the latest between 1536 and 1537 during Henry VIII's brief marriage to his third wife, Jane Seymour, providing a terminus post quem for the date of deposition. In other words, that's the most recent coin, because it's identifiable as during his marriage to Jane Seymour, so they figure that's when it was probably buried. All the coins got buried sometime around then, because there's no coins later than that. It doesn't necessarily prove that that's when it got buried, but I would say that is a good clue. Encompassing more than 100 tumultuous years, the coins of the New Forest Hoard bear witness to the high watermark for English fortunes during the 100 Years' War, the subsequent Wars of the Roses, the coming of the Tudors, and the beginning of the English Reformation. No less than 4 kings, 2 queens, and 1 cardinal are named on the coins in the hoard, and the various denominations in the find chart the evolution of the English gold currency from its medieval foundations to the emergence of the system that endures to this day. The New Forest Hoard was reported to the authorities, recorded at the British Museum, and disclaimed through the treasure process. Offered here in its entirety, it is the only complete and fully documented gold coin hoard from the early Tudor period ever to have been sold at auction. On the 26th of March 2020, the UK went into lockdown in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Largely confined to their homes, many people responded by taking up a renewed interest in that deeply rooted British pastime, gardening. Thus, on the morning of the 6th of April 2020, in a garden in the New Forest district of Hampshire, a married couple, we'll call them Mr. and Mrs. W because they want to stay anonymous, found themselves adjusting the fence that divided one of their flower beds from a small stream. While digging around a fence post, Mr. W noticed a cluster of thin circular objects in a lump of clayey soil. He put the lump on the decking at the back door of the house and continued the task at hand. Later that afternoon, talk about not understanding what was going on. He's just like, oh, put this to the side, back to my digging. Later that afternoon, one of the couple's teenage sons, whose curiosity had been aroused by the mystery objects, way to not have too much screen time, kid. He washed him off under the garden tap. Glinting in the spring sunshine were a handful of gold coins. He promptly started to research the coins on the internet. It's benign screen time. And discovered they were some 500 years old and potentially of considerable historic and commercial value. So while the rest of the world struggled to find activities to fill the seemingly interminable hours of lockdown, one very fortunate family spent several happy weeks digging in their garden for buried treasure, aided by the arrival of a metal detector hastily ordered online. In total, they found 63 gold coins and 1 silver coin. And by the way, you might recall it said there ended up being 70 total, 69 gold. This is one of the ones that was found after the family reported it, and the pros came and did a formal excavation of the same site, where they found a few more gold coins, including this one. And we know that because every single coin in this hoard has a specific number under the portable antiquities scheme assigned, and this one is -14 after a long code that applies to all the coins in this hoard. So that is the nice thing about the regime in England, one of the only last things remaining about the regime in England, which is that unlike in Europe, where if you find something, you better report it or you're probably going to jail. And even if you report it, you're not getting to keep it. The archaeologists, the museums are going to come take it away from you and give you some token nothing for it. But in England, although you are required to report a find of, I think, more than 3 things together, which get called a hoard and treasure, you have to report it to the coroner. As long as you do that, you are to be paid fair market value of this stuff, even if it does end up going to a museum. And if no museum can afford to pay that and take it on, it gets sold at auction, which is what happened here. And you get the dough. You know, the auction house, of course, takes their cut. But so these people got several £100,000 out of this, I'm sure. Because this one, all in, was like $6,200 to get it over here and be done with everything. And I would say that this coin, without that pedigree, without us knowing exactly where it came from and it being what it is, probably closer to 4,000 something in this condition and looking like this. So credit to the regime in England only for this. So given the importance of the discovery, it was decided that an archaeological excavation of this site should be carried out. This took place in October of 2021, and a further 6 gold coins were recovered, including this one. The hoard was returned to the finders in 2023 because no museum was in a position to acquire it. Isn't that nice? New Forest Hoard is made up of coins of 5 different denominations, 4 gold and 1 silver. Each denomination was the principal coin struck in its respective metal and period of production. The gold denominations represented are the noble, real, angel. There were 60 angels, so this is one of the most common ones. I was bidding on everything I could there, but I was getting blown away, so I'm happy to have walked off with this. No trace of a container was found by the family or the archaeologists. These denominations span 3 successive currency periods from the high medieval age to the early modern. So they go on to explain some information about these kinds of coins and theories about how these got here. No one is ever going to know for sure. They do say that Mr. and Mrs. W's home is a modern one with no evidence of an earlier Tudor building, while the location is only 2 miles from the Hurst Castle, which was built by Henry VIII from 1541 to 1544 to guard the Solent. One would expect a far higher number of coins of the later crowned gold period and a larger number of dyed duplicates to associate the hoard with the construction of this fortification. It seems more likely that the coins were deposited in the context of the troubled years between the late 1530s, at the height of the first phase of the Reformation. This was a period that the historian Brendan Scott has described as the greatest dislocation of people, property, and daily life since the Norman conquest. The village and manor of Milford formed part of the estates of Christ Church Priory. On November 28, 1539, the last prior of Christ Church, John Draper, surrendered the priory to Cromwell's commissioners, and so began the process of inventorying and removing the many treasures of the church. Though we'll never know by whom or for what reason the new Forest Hoard was buried, it is tantalizing to speculate that the coins were concealed in order to keep them safe from the reaches of the rapacious king's men. And of course, they're referring to the fact that Henry VIII, once he broke with the Pope in Rome so he could start divorcing chicks, started also confiscating church property. And that would also include their savings, which would, of course, be composed in part of nice gold coins like this. So the age-old story of bury your gold because the bad guys are coming or stuff is getting crazy out there is likely the reason we get this today. And they point out that all the coins are full weight, meaning they didn't get clipped or filed. So these were not in circulation too long. And this one in particular was perhaps 20 or 30 years old when it got buried, based on their guess. So there you have it. A nice angel came out of the ground at least 450 years, almost 500 years after getting put there. Not even in a container. That's how it looks. Gold appears to be money.